Services and Licensing Committee on this March 13th,
Yes.
2025. Start with the usual housekeeping. If you hear a fire alarm, assume it's real and please make your way to the nearest fire exits, which are clearly marked. Mobile phones, please make sure your mobile phones are switched off or on silent. Councillors using modern Gov application to access the document pack from the meeting may continue to use their electronic devices, but members must only use their devices to access council and committee information and ensure they're not distracted by their electronic devices. Meeting is being filmed for live or subsequent broadcast, except where there are confidential or exempt items, of which I don't think we have any, by entering the council chamber and using the public seating. No one in public seating as far as I can see. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, wait for an invitation from the chair. Remember to turn your microphone off when you finish speaking. Please face the microphone when speaking and speak loudly, clearly, and as close as possible to the microphone. When referring to a specific report page or slide, mention the report page or slide so that all members have a clear understanding of what's being discussed. And finally, I think last thing, members' post. If you please remember to pick up any post for you in the members' lounge at the end of the meeting. Okay. Apologies from Councillors Hamilton and Oxley. Any other apologies to convey? No. Does anyone have any declaration of interest to make? No, doesn't look like it. And the minutes from the meeting of the 30th of January, please raise your hand if you're okay for me to sign those. Then I will sign those, thank you. Public questions, there are none. Members' questions, there are none. So the first item of substance is the performance monitoring report, which was published in the document pack. If there are any questions, it would be, I think, for Councillor Printer or Turner, who have been on that. Any questions about the performance monitoring report? Don't see any. Then next we have, sorry, James, Councillor Boyle. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, thank you. It was around the digital platform that's being developed to track antisocial behaviour. Is that right? And I just wondered what the progress was on that and if there was a plan in place, because I saw that was one of the things that's lagging behind.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's still in progress. It's still with the development team. 2 weeks ago, I was told it was near ready for us to trial and to get it out there. So I just need to get an update from the development team on when we can start the trial, hoping from April, because it does feel like a long journey that we've been on for this, but we had to gather quite a lot of data to ensure we were asking the right questions within the new system. So I will check where they are with it and come back to you, if that's okay.
Sorry. And also, so is that like a public-facing tool that people will be able to put that in there, and then we will get back to them and say, we've cleared that fly tip or whatever it is?
Yes. So basically, it will be available online, and because we have a system now, so it's not that we don't have anything, but what we're trying to do is streamline it, make it more efficient and effective, and see that it shows how each officer has responded. So it's more of a case management rather than send an email to somebody to work on. It's more case management. So it'll be more efficient, and we'll be able to gather more data and be able to use it more effectively.
And just one more, because I think that was on there as well. In terms of getting back to residents, would this be a separate tool that residents can pull up a concern or a question that they have from us? Or would this be all kind of streamlined as one way that residents can get in touch with the council services?
So this system is about reporting antisocial behaviour into the council and for it to go to the right service within, because antisocial behaviour is sort of touched across different services for different areas. And so what it will do, it will send it to the right officers within the right service
Right.
for the right type of antisocial behaviour. That officer then will respond to the antisocial behaviour and will make contact with the person making the
Brilliant, brilliant. And then we'll monitor like how quickly all that happens.
Yes.
And, yeah, thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. On page 33, it says about the healthy lifestyle scheme, and that is in red. Is there a reason for that, for not meeting that target? Am I right in reading that the result is 77? Sorry.
Sorry, I've lost all of my. Everything's just gone, so I can't get it up.
Page 33. It says
find that?
healthy lifestyles, received each year an increased number of referrals to. Does that mean they haven't been? You haven't got to enough of them, or?
Yes, so with the healthy lifestyles referral, it's very dependent on the GPs sending referrals into us. So depending on how many referrals we get in, we will act upon. We have now got 3 active members of staff getting through all the referrals in Stroud. And we have, I think, 2 members of staff over in Dursley doing it. So we have the officers there, but if we can only work on the referrals we get. So if we're not getting loads through, then we can only act on those.
Sorry. So it is the referrals you're not getting. It's not that you're not meeting them.
No, it's
yeah.
constant. No, it is constant. And there are times, if somebody is off sick, that it will go down, but it does peak and trough referrals depending on the quarter that you're in, and sort of the winter does tend to be quieter for referrals for people. They don't want to come out. These are people that don't exercise on a regular basis.
I think Emma has something to add to that.
I just wanted to follow up that we've done quite a lot of updating and promotion, because what we know is that there's a lot of GP turnover. So like we meet with the GP network every month, but that will be like the leads of each primary care network. And what we know is on the ground, there's actually such a high turnover of GPs who are like from out of area and who might not know about our schemes. So we've been doing more promotion with them. And we had a frailty event up at Forest Green, which was a big workshop, and there was lots of GPs, and a lot of them hadn't known anything because they were new and they didn't know anything about it. So we do know we're going to have to keep on that, because the GPs are under a lot of pressure, and actually that's probably not going to get better. So what we also try to do is make sure that we are updating like other referral routes, so people like our physio colleagues and other people who might be on frontline working with people that might need the service. Yeah.
Can I just come back? So that is a notified sort of problem with the so many temporary GPs. I
Definitely.
know in
Yeah,
my
their
own
ability.
surgery, when a new GP actually signs on to stay, everybody says hooray, sort of thing.
Yeah, and actually the amount of information that they have to try and digest about what is there in the area for every eventuality is an issue for the GPs, and they'll complain about it a lot. And when we had a good social prescribing service, they might be the ones that would actually know that information because it's their job. But because obviously the social prescribing contract is, paused for the county, so we only have a handful of them now. So actually they are stretched. So I think that also will have an impact on us until the social prescribing replacement comes in, actually.
Chair, could I ask one more? Just,
And then,
and I know I've asked it before, about the funding for the pitch preparation fund. Was that just for that 1 year, or was it money from Sports England? It says on page 31 about the benefit of the pitch preparation fund, and you list all the ones that were successful. Was that just for that year from Sports England, or have they carried it on?
For that one, that was just for that year.
I didn't know whether we could push it out to any others now. But
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Brenter, Nigel.
Yeah, I'm sure I read somewhere in here there was problems with software problems. Was it in relation to referrals? The somewhere software problems with the interface between computer systems? Does that relate to referrals? If
Emma.
Sorry, I'm just looking. You're kind of like above here, and we're all here actually doing this. So, yeah. There is, so Referral was a software system that we bought in order to be able to make the referrals more effective, efficient. And we were promised that it would talk to the GP system, but it doesn't as yet. So we're still pushing for that. And then we now have a new situation which we will resolve ourselves, which is just having taken over the leisure centre in Stratford Park, and we've got Dursley. We want their booking systems to interact with Referral, which is proving quite complicated, but it is possible. Like, we can make it work, but that's been a frustration. And because it's a third party organisation that are running Referral, we can't just fix it ourselves. We have to get them to figure out what's wrong. So it is okay, it does work, but we would rather it was more efficient.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Any more questions on performance monitoring?
Thank you. I guess, Emma, it's just touching on one of your earlier answers to one of Councillor Robinson's questions. How is it funded, the sort of social prescribing of active lifestyle? Sorry, I've just closed the specific bit I was about to look at. But
Different aspects. Do you want me to explain quickly?
just briefly, and which part of it is funded by us, and what can we do to sort of help with that if it's being paused?
Yeah, so we have our own healthy lifestyle scheme, which is paid for in-house by STC. We're one of the oldest, I think we are the oldest scheme like that in the county. And so those are our contracted staff that deliver the physical activity, and they're very specialist in what they're trained to do. The thing I mentioned in the earlier question was about social prescribing, and that is an NHS-based service. And previously there was a service that was paid for by the county. And it was felt after like 7 years that it wasn't really functioning and needed to be basically recommissioned. So it's at a pause right now. So there were a few social prescribers still working within the district who are paid for by GPs to cover their bit of the population, but we don't have a sort of umbrella over the whole district, and we won't have that because that's not something that we commission in our budget.
Briefly following on quickly, if that's okay, Chair. There was the Southwest Healthcare Partnership program with the NHS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Is some of the funding from that potentially available to plug any of those gaps?
Sorry, I missed the first word of what you thought.
I think it was called the Southwest. I think it was called the Active Healthcare Partnership, or it was an NHS program which there was funding available for. I mean, I know some of our. I can't remember. So a couple of our other colleagues were sort of following that up. But yeah, I mean, is that something that's familiar to you specifically? Or?
No, or it might be by a different name, because that's what I found. There's lots of different versions of things. The social prescribing contract is a joint thing between the County Council and the ICB, and they have got plans for it. There's budget against it. It's just not. They're not ready to recommission. So we have to kind of sit and wait for that because they've got the funding for it.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Any more questions on performance monitoring? No, if not, I think we just go on. There's nothing to vote on there. Next item on the agenda is the monitoring report for Q3 24-25, which will be presented by John Coldridge, Principal Accountant.
Great. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. So as just mentioned, this is a CS&L Budget Monitoring Report, Q3. So if I start with the revenue budget position, which is on page 50, you'll see the table 1 there. The monitoring position for 31st of December 24 shows a projected net revenue overspend of 167k. And if I'll just run through some of the bigger variances. So community health and wellbeing, we've got a 20k additional income. Additional income of 20k has been forecast due to an increase in the revenue from health and wellbeing classes. This has been reflected in the budget for 25-26. Community safety, 358k transfer to reserves. This transfer is proposed regarding funding received in 23-24 from GCC to implement a new care line system. Delays with the procurement means implementation is now planned for 25-26. Grants to voluntary organisations, 168k transfer from reserves. The transfer from reserves has meant that due to relaxation of the HSF rules allowing a wider scope of money support, we've been able to allocate it to a partnership project with the Citizens Advice to deliver advice first aid. Training plus more specialist debt advice for the district. Sorry, I didn't read that very well. Public spaces, we've got a 26k overspend and 150k transfer to reserves. The forecast overspend is concerned with 2 public liability claims that have been settled by insurers in the last months, one of which required payment for the full 20k excess. The proposed transfer to reserves is a 24-25 budget allocation of 150k for the redevelopment of play areas at Stratford Park, toddler area, accessible pathways at Stratford Park, Cambridge Avenue, and a basket swing at Bunting Hill. Revenue and benefits, 320k overspend. An adjustment to the arrears balance is expected to cause an in-year final pressure following an update in the reporting from the software provider. This large adjustment is due to the inability to run these reports in recent years and is subject of a recent external audit recommendation. Sports centres, there's 145k underspend stroke additional income and a 23k transfer from reserves. An underspend is forecast on outsourced building cleaning as we've made moves towards a higher quality of internal solution, and utility expenditure due, and there's a typo there, it does say towards, but it should be away from natural gas. So it should be an utility expenditure due away from natural gas, so they're moving away from natural gas. The 23k transfer from reserves is attributable to the new leisure review setup costs, for which funding was put aside from the 22-23 outturn position. Moving on to salary savings, which is on page 52, table 2. This is a table where there's been a delay in recruitment or a post is held empty for a period of time. And there's a list of those vacancy savings and some detail below that, which I won't go through at this point. Moving on to capital. Page 53, there's a table there showing the capital programme is showing an underspend of 50k. And I'll just go through the variances on there as well. So community buildings investment, terms for a new lease to Kings Hill House Limited were approved by S&R committee on the 23rd November 23. Under the terms of the new lease, the council will take responsibility for the rent and structure of the building. Decarbonisation sports centres. This covers 3 sites, the Pole Stratford Park and the Leisure Centre and Museum in the Park. The project achieved practical completion at the end of January. The total grant sum is 4 million, with the council contributing the requisite sum of 700k. The final spend is forecast as an underspend of 73k on the total project. Stratford Park and Lido maintenance. The Lido programme includes repairs and replacement to the pool tank, plant metering and surrounding area, and other things listed there, works listed there. The maintenance programme is now underway following a delay whilst the site has been successfully insourced. Numerous schemes are now in advanced planning stage or implementation, but there will still be a significant slip in 24-25 programme into 25-26 financial year. And finally, Swimming Pool Support Fund, the Pulse. The forecast spend for this project will be funded from the government swimming pool support grant in full, meaning there will be no cost to the District Council or variances at the year end. That concludes the report. Happy to take any questions. If I can't answer them, I'll pass them on. Somebody can.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Any questions? Councillor Prentis?
On page 51, 3.6, it says progress has been put on hold due to staff sickness within the team, and the team are reviewing the offer. Officers, could you explain, firstly, who the offer's to, and what you're reviewing? I mean, it seems to, promoting stopping vaping in schools is really important. I mean, doctors are now discovering completely new forms of lung disease, which are directly related to vaping. And in Australia, they banned it altogether, except unless you get it on prescription. And I think, we need to be doing quite a lot of work on this. So I'd like to know what reviewing the offer actually means.
Okay, I don't know whether John has it or is anyone?
What page is it?
Page 51, yeah.
It's the CYP work, Emma.
Yeah, there's absolutely no plans to stop that work. What's happened actually is we've had quite a lot more progress, probably since this has even been written, because that piece of work was being done in partnership with people at the Door and a few other people. So they are now fully networked into the county work stream on that. So actually, even though we've had a member of staff who was holding this not here, it's actually been progressed much more by doing it in partnership with them, because they were the ones on the ground, sort of on the coalface doing this work. So that's been really good. We've had a lot of good progress. There's absolutely no plans at all to not work on vaping. It's definitely a priority for the county.
The number one thing I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Can I ask? What were the safeguarding
Councillor
concerns then? Was that was on that, wasn't it? Did I read about safeguarding? And the one legal, yeah. To bring it on.
Don't think we have anyone from One Legal here tonight.
I don't know. I have a feeling that might be actually an error in the report that we've not picked up, because that's not really relevant to what's going on here. No.
It sounds like some contract just needed a bit of redoing.
Yeah, but that's not really anything that we have, that we hold. No. Can we come back to you on that? Because it actually feels like that's not the right information. Is that all right, Jonathan?
Right, Jonathan?
Is it all right if we come back? Because that doesn't feel like correct information. Just for information, we do work really closely with the youth club network. That's their own network that they run. They're all independent, and part of our support for them is, what can we do to support things like safeguarding, good governance, all of that, in the same way that we do with the Community Hubs network. It's a real high priority for us that if we've got independent people out there running things, that we're kind of here to support them to do that kind of thing properly. That's not what this point is, but I don't know if that's why that's ended up in there, but it's not. Okay, sorry.
Thank you for that clarification, Emma. Councillor Boyd.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just on page 53, 5.1. I was just quite interested in that community building investment input. We've got Frith Youth Centre in Buttage, which is a really important part of the community. It services both seniors as well as young people, but it is definitely in need of investment. And I wondered how you are become eligible to be enveloped into the warm arms of the council in that way so that they can support with that kind of thing.
Ange.
Okay, Kingshill House is a Stroud District Council asset, and it's been something that's been going on for years where Kingshill House were going to take full possession of it and run it as a going concern, but because of the age of the building, they couldn't get to a point where they could take it on and keep, let it wash its face. So the council had to put more money into it to support it. Otherwise, it wouldn't operate. But it is a council asset, whereas the youth centre is not. Yes, yeah.
Okay, James. Yeah, thank you. Johnson, Councillor Edmonds.
Yeah. Could you give us a bit of the two public liability claims? What were they involved? I see we had to pay in excess of 20,000 on one of them.
Just anyone?
I don't know exactly what they were for. They are like legacy from years back. So because with those claims, they tend to take a long time to come through. So I can find the detail if you want. So we can talk.
Just
to
in interest, if there are things that we do need to look at.
Absolutely. But they were historic claims.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? If not, then I will read out the decision, which is the committee resolves to note the outturn forecast for the general fund revenue budget and the capital programme for this committee. Do we have a proposer, please? Councillor Robinson, Steve, thank you. And do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Prenter, Nigel, thank you. Councillor Prenter, would you like to speak now? And debate, would anyone like to say anything in debate? Don't see any debate. Then Councillor Robinson, would you like to sum up or say anything?
Thank you very much. If you could pass our thanks on to Adele. And I'm very happy to propose Amendment Heat.
Thank you. Then I think we can move to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're in favour of noting this report. That looks to be unanimous, I think. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, John. Okay, next on the agenda is the report on from the Community Health and Wellbeing Manager, Emma Keating-Clark. Emma, over to you.
Thank you. So this is a much anticipated report. We've been going through several years of evaluating how we do community wellbeing grants. It was done very, very differently when I started working here. I think it was mainly a decision made in a cupboard. Nobody knew about it, nobody publicised it. So we've tried to really look at it being a good piece of partnership work with our voluntary sector in the district. The last grant we had was a 3-year grant. That's one of the changes that we made is, our voluntary sector partners asked for a longer term of grant because it gives them better continuity. So we did that for the last 3 years. The downside of that has been that for 3 years, there's been an awful lot of change. Predominantly the cost of living, and actually there's loads of organisations that have developed since then that we haven't been able to support because we haven't had a grant to give out because it's all been tied up. So now that we're coming to the end of it, we're looking at how we use it going forward. with a real close eye on our council plan, what our objectives are, and the fact that we are in quite a different climate to where we were 3 years ago. So I've got 3 recommendations in the report. And one of them, the first one is that we, instead of having a competitive application process, that we use some of the funding to target partners that we have that are directly working on work that we need to be done in the district, and that is aligned with our council plan. And so that would be VCS partners, people like community hubs and specialist organisations that are the only organisations of that nature in our district, therefore the only place you can go to for that particular kind of service or support. The second recommendation is that we have a 2-year or 1 or a 2-year contract this time, so not a 3-year contract, and that we don't allocate all of that funding at one time. We hold some of it back so that we've got the opportunity to fund different people that we haven't worked with before, people who are, again, doing really direct, important work that we are relying on. And the third recommendation is that for some of the organisations that would maybe have applied for a community grant before, that we redirect them into our small grants, which we always have had for the last 3 years. It's a successful sort of easy entry grant that people can come and apply for who maybe don't have that much experience of doing grant applications. So it's a very simple 1-page form, and it's only up to £1,000. So it's a good entry level grant. It's a good way of encouraging people into this work. Or that we encourage people to apply for Stroud funding, which is our crowdfunding platform that we launched, just before Christmas. And really, we didn't have that like 3 years ago. We didn't have Stroud funding. There was the only option people had for launch sector funding was the wellbeing grant, whereas now we have Stroud funding. So for people that might not qualify under the other categories in terms of doing that direct work, they can apply for a Stroud funding application and get their projects funded in that way. So a lot has changed in the last 3 years, and this is us really trying to update and make sure that we're using our funding effectively. And so there's a list at the end of that of the people who currently are coming to the end of their 3-year grant and how I would allocate that funding for them. I just wanted to mention in here that that's not the only people that will get that funding, because there were people that we didn't work with 3 years ago that we do now that we need to look at, how can we allocate you funding fairly now? Yeah. And also just, I've mentioned in the report about our VCS principles. That's principles that we've adopted last year based on work already done with our other partners like the SCB, about how we as a organisation can work well with voluntary sector partners, and part of that sort of recommendations is doing work like this so that we don't make people jump through lots and lots of hoops when actually we're relying on them to do a service that we really need, and if they weren't going to do it we would be a bit stuck. So that's the short version of the report.
Thank you, Emma. Any questions for Emma about this one? I think I saw Councillor Prentice hand first, Nigel.
Yes, so just on page 65 and 66, the green bits and the pink bits. So the green bits, are these the organisations who are the only people delivering it, so therefore they need the security of funding. There's not much point having bidding, and the pink ones are the ones that have to basically bid for it or crowdfund or whatever.
So, and the green ones are ones, they will either be doing like a geographical service, so like the community hubs would be like the ones that are servicing a neighbourhood, there's no one else doing that job in that place, or they would be specialist hubs, so it's specialist VCS organisations like Bertha's group who do women's refuge. The red ones will be there. The idea with some of them is that it's quite a small amount that we have given them, so really they would be better off just doing a small grant, like that's more appropriate. And for some of them, they're just not targeted enough. They will be like universal stuff that they do, or stuff that really people could come and could pay for, and they don't need district council money to keep doing what they're doing. They could get that in another way. Yeah. Just to add, the youth clubs in there, Frith Youth Club were the only youth club that applied for the community wellbeing grant 3 years ago. And I'm not suggesting that we don't fund the youth clubs generally. Like, we're really working with, as I said before, the youth clubs in their network, because we want to have better funding coming through into the youth clubs. We want to be an advocate for the youth clubs because they are all funded in different ways and they're all struggling and they're doing really important work. But we have got the youth strategy that we're working on. And so the idea is that we will be a really strong advocate for the work of our youth sector, and that we will be able to channel different funding in at that point. So I just wanted that to be clear because they were one of the ones on it. Yeah.
Thank you. You answered a question I hadn't asked, but
Thank you, Emma. Steve, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. So that, you know, it says there the organisations for a 3-year up until 2025 on the top. So these, all the community hubs, these will all be considered for the next financial year
For this financial from April, yes, exactly. Yeah, from April, yeah.
that we're in as from April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
And when will they be notified of any grants?
When you all say, yes, this is a good idea, and then I can all email them tomorrow and say, we'd really like you to work with us on this specific work.
Yeah, but these figures here are in the last financial year. Yeah.
Yeah. So the amounts will have to be agreed, and that's really based on needs, complexity of what they're doing. It's not about just, you know, population numbers, because some of them work in small areas, but with highly complex individuals with a lot, you know, high need. And some of it will be based on, you know, do they have paid staff? Are they entirely volunteer run? You know, we don't want to give money to an organisation that's entirely volunteer led where they're not paying salaries. Like we can give them some funding, but we're not going to core fund a post when they're not actually employing anybody. So we need to look at that for all of the individual organisations, and you know, that we have to do that in partnership with them so that it becomes fair. And you know, we have a lot more like hubs than we did when this was originally started. And we also have UKSPF funding, which has been going to 10 hubs, but not other hubs. So we need to allocate this knowing that there's also UKS funding coming out, and it has to be sort of equitable, and we have to make sensible decisions about where the need is.
So you're talking directly to the hubs to see how they're going to finance going forward in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
And will you mentioned about a year, 2 years, will the figure, you know, the amount given to the hubs, will that depend on that hub, whether you give it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, or is it definitely only for 1 year for the hub?
That's a good question. My feeling is for most of the hubs, it will be a 2-year grant, because the ones that are very well established, we know what we're doing. For me, if there was I can't think of a reason why we would only give a hub a 1-year grant. So I think for me, all of those would be a 2-year grant. Yeah. Yeah.
And could I just ask just a couple more? You mentioned like Frith Youth Centre, and, you know, personally, this is me speaking, I think, you know, the youth centres should be going to their own parishes, you know, that can raise a precept to cover that. You know, I mean, it's easy for them to raise a precept and have an excuse to raise the precept if they're caring about their young people.
I think, as a Nailsworth resident, I fully agree with you, because we are really good at supporting our youth club, and I think we need to be advocates for that with our town and parish council colleagues. And I think having all of the youth clubs in a network and being able to advocate for them as a unit to really show the breadth of work that goes on, I'd really like that to be an example so that more of that commissioning could be done locally. Yeah.
And could I just mention one other that, my own experience of the Schools for Larks is, I see that we've given them money previously and that you're looking at perhaps cutting that, but only that very good organisation, but if you go to book them for anything special, they're very expensive. So, you know, I don't know, you know, what we're giving money for, but if you're a voluntary book organisation, you want to book them, they are very expensive. So,
I mean, this 3-year grant would have been for specific work, because they do all different kinds of work. They do like work with, at the time, they did a lot of work with addictions and different specialist groups. But going forward, that's not, they're not key to our council plan strategy in terms of, fund them in the same way that we would do somewhere like the Beresford Group, But we would, what they do is great, and so I would be directing them towards something like Stride funding.
Okay, thank you. Emma, any more questions for Emma? James, Councillor Boyle.
You just a quick couple. You mentioned that this money could go to a post to actually pay someone's salary, right? But obviously that's not enough for what we've been previously paying. So the idea is that you will consolidate everything that you've currently got and just focus on a few key posts so they can really deliver their work.
Not necessarily. It's going to depend on the organisation. I mentioned about posts because some community hubs aren't in a position to employ people. They're entirely volunteer led, and they're not looking to employ staff. So, for us to give funding, there's no point in giving part funding a core post when actually they're not paying that. It would be better to support them for their food pantry, or support the venue that they're in, or some other project work for them. So what they're doing is really important, but they don't need core funding to pay staff, because that's not the way that they run. And as a network of independent organisations, they're allowed to be constituted in a way that they see fit, and that's fine. But for those that do have core posts and are supporting people really heavily with those posts, then I would be, looking to part fund some of those core posts to keep the bigger ones going. Because that's what we've done in the past. Places like Nailsworth, people like Pagan Hill, we've part funded one of their a manager's posts, which keeps the whole thing running.
Yeah, great. And if you're a new hub, would you have to wait 2 years to be able to access the next round of funding?
That's a great question. So that's the problem that we've had for the last 3 years. And so that's why I'm suggesting that we hold back. We don't allocate all of the funding, because there will be people that we're working with now who are not in a position to be funded, but maybe in a year's time, they will be. And so we want to be on that journey with them, and we want to be able to say we can, match fund this or support this. I advocate for all of the voluntary sector funding. I sit on lots of funding panels. I score lots of bids from Stroud for other commissioners, and it's never been as hard as it is right now. People are, I'm scoring them really highly. I'm really advocating for them, and they're not getting the funding because it's really tight across the whole system. So for me, we've got organisations who are at real risk of going under because other funding isn't coming to them. So I want to make sure we really prioritise with the key needs, that we need to be met in the district. Yeah. So and I don't want it to all be used up and then not be able to support anyone in the next 2-3 years as they come through.
Thank you. Councillor Nansen Sharma.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is related to your previous feedback. I would like to understand whether there is a criteria, guidelines that you can provide and advertise to all the community hubs around, so that they can understand how and they will get the funding for each of those. Do we have that available already, or?
So it's got to align with the council plan. And so primarily at the moment, we're partnering with hubs around cost of living. And we've the household support funding that we've been getting, a lot of the hubs are our frontline delivery mechanism for making that work. So that's the kind of work that I want to make sure we prioritise. We've also got a lot of community wellbeing work, which again, hubs, and it's not just hubs, there's other organisations who are partnering to do specialist work around the district. So it will be based on our council plan, it will be based on our objectives within our community wellbeing service plan, because it's supposed to be a community wellbeing grant, so it's got to align with those principles. And I mean, I know all of the hubs, I know what they're doing, I know everyone on this list, I know a lot of other voluntary sector organisations who are doing very specialist work, and they're the only people in the district doing it. So they know what they're doing, and they know what we value them doing it, because we might not fund it right now, but we really, really work with them closely to make sure that it happens. So they're the kind of people that
that will be getting this, and it will be very much geared to, is it in the council plan? Is it what we want to happen? Can you do it? Is there anyone else doing it? No. Right, in that case, we need to make sure we keep it.
Yeah, it's more for new hubs. I mean, I'm part of one of the established hub, and more of the established, they know exactly what they're doing and how their funding is rolling. But it's more of, for the new hubs or anyone starting a new project to know where they can go for help and what are the criteria that they need to follow.
Oh, I see what you mean. So yes, there will be. So for anyone that we don't know about, like I tend to be the first port of call. There's also other networks across the district for new voluntary sector organisations or community groups to come to, so that we can sort of feed them into the wider system, whether it's our funding or anyone else's funding. So we'll always work with new organisations to give them advice about that, and whether that's Stroud funding or some other kind of funding opportunity. Yeah, and we try to advocate for them in terms of, if like the VCS Alliance do great training, we're trying to bring them into the district so that they can help people to do like their first ever national lottery bid. It's all part of supporting the voluntary sector.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. One more question, if you don't mind. This is sorry, 1 second. This is to do with how, let me try and phrase this properly. I'll come back.
You can always contact me afterwards as well, and have a meeting, have a conversation, because that might be easier for you.
All right. So you're going to follow that up later, Sharma? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Emma on this? Don't see any. In which case I will read out the decision, which is the committee resolves to 1, adopt the proposed changes to the Community Wellbeing Grant Scheme as set out in this report, and 2, delegate authority to the lead officer to enter into necessary agreements as part of the agreed funding processes. Do we have a proposer, please? Sharma, Councillor Nansen. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Boyle-James. Does the seconder wish to speak at this point?
Just the usual great thanks. And clearly this is vital work, and it's obviously been stewarded really well. You're the expert, and I'm glad we've decided to go with what you want. And it'd be great if we could get you some more money. So if we could figure out how to do that, do let us know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for your support, Councillor Boyle, because it's really appreciated. Councillor Boyle came to know your patch. It was very good. People really appreciated having a member of the district council there to see what was going on. So did Councillor Martin. So yeah, really, really appreciate your support.
And more money would definitely be a good thing. I agree with Councillor Boyle on that one. So debate. Anyone else like to speak on this? Yeah.
I just wanted to say quickly that I really love the moving away from the competitive part of it, because when we were putting together the cultural strategy and speaking to arts organisations who are also community organisations, they said like they've got good partnerships between them, and it's such a use of their time putting together grant applications and battling against each other when actually they work really well together, and they've got such limited resources. We want them to spend their time doing what we need them to do. So I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just echo that this council has experience of the problems of competitive bidding for funding, doesn't it? Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Robinson.
I'm pleased to support this. The grants, in particular to the hubs, where they're in areas of particular need, and I'm really pleased to support.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? If not, Councillor Nansen. Sharma, would you like to sum up as proposed?
Thank you, Chair. Well, really want to thank Emma for a wonderful piece of work, and I'm really always passionate about the community well-being. And again, I echo what Councillor Adam said about the competitive bidding that was taken out, which is really appreciative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. In which case we move on to the vote. So please raise your hand if you are in favour. And that is unanimous, I think, so that is passed. Thank you very much, Emma. And next is the Leisure Service Performance Update, which will be presented by Darren Young, Leisure Services Manager. Darren, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. You might be bored of me talking about leisure now, it's all I do. But I wanted to give you a report really on the first kind of 4 months, up towards 5 months that we've now been operating Active Lifestyle Stroud. And I think if you've read through the report, you'll see that I've tried to be quite honest about some of our achievements, but actually very honest about some of the challenges that we're facing. So I just wanted to talk you through a few of the key points. So on, where are we? On page 72, there's a table there just to show some of the feedback, and I guess not the feedback, but the trends in the feedback that we're receiving from both sites. What I find particularly interesting is you'll often see very similar feedback on the pros and the cons. So you'll see a positive at Stroud is they're enjoying the 4-lane swimming trial, which some of you may have read about in your inboxes. I certainly have. And then a negative, people are unhappy about the 4-lane swimming trial. So we're really seeing a balance across the feedback. And actually to some of your emails that you've sent me, we have run a survey about that, and the split was 50-50 exactly. So yeah, it's interesting. Some of the positives there around the cleanliness, we know we're not there, but we're making progress towards it. Some negatives around the occupancy in public swimming. People preferred the COVID measures where you had 6 square cubic metres of pool to every swimmer, but unfortunately in the real world we can't necessarily support that going forward. And there's some negatives there around answering the phone, being able to contact the centre in Stroud. Dursley, some themes there around the facilities perceived as too small for the rapidly building population. The gym is getting dated. It's 7-8 years old now in there as a well-used gym. And then on both sites, there's some comments around the late cancellations and no-shows for classes, meaning that people on the waiting list or people that aren't on the waiting list can't book in. And we've taken some quite decisive action to overcome that, which again is receiving mixed reviews, as everything does. But we're actually seeing it take effect and it's working. Waiting lists are going down. So yeah, some good positives and some challenges there that we need to start to work with or to continue to work on. Stratford Perk, I think quite a few of you now have visited for a coffee and a cake, hopefully. So again, some fairly brutally honest comments there that Stroud District Council don't operate food and beverage outlets, so there isn't any experience in this building at doing it. So that's become evident. So we're doing our best, but we know there's a way to go, and we're taking some steps, some really positive steps to improve the cafe at Stratford Park. To the first challenge, I guess, in table 2, when the product is good, it's great. But what we're struggling with is the consistency of that product, and that's really what we're putting a lot of effort into working on. So yeah, I'm not going to read through all of those challenges. But we need to instigate a bit of a training plan in there. We're also looking to recruit a cafe manager because I think that area now needs its own leadership and its own direction, its own drive and passion, which I think will take us from the usually good to the consistently great, which is what we want to be. We want to be a destination cafe for Stroud, not somewhere a swimmer gets a coffee. Although we love swimmers coming to get a coffee, we want you to think at home, where shall I go this morning for my coffee and my lunch? Let's go to Stratford Park. So that's where we are. In section 3 there, and in chart 1, you'll see an overview of our financial outturn, but I won't go into any detail because John has obviously already told you that we're predicting a surplus or an underspend and a surplus in income for this financial year. And then the service metrics, I did mention at the start of the report that I can provide you with all sorts of metrics. So please do feel free to email me or meet with me, and I can talk about any specific interests that you might have. I've tried to give you a little flavour within the appendix there of some of the information. One of the sort of key pieces that this committee passed was the Be Active scheme, and in chart 2 there you'll start to see the numbers are creeping up really positively for the use of that scheme. We've got people now in every category, including veterans, young people, pension age people, employees, concessions. So really starting to ramp up, and I'm completely guilty this has been done without advertising. So in the next 4 weeks, the next 6 weeks, we'll start to see advertising pushed out on our socials and in centres to really push that scheme, and I appreciate your support as you speak to people in your constituencies, in your areas. Let them know that discounts are available for all sorts of people in Stratford Park and Dursley. Sorry, Active Lifestyle Stroud and Dursley. Still got a mental block with site names. I'm still struggling. Yeah, so across the district. So at Active Lifestyles Dursley, we recently ran a Net Promoter Score survey, and if you're not familiar with what that is, it's essentially a one-question survey that we send out to all users, and it's used to benchmark how likely people will be to recommend our product and our service to friends and colleagues. So they score us on a 0 to 10, and I'm really pleased to let you know that Dursley scored 47. Which may sound low, but the industry standard for leisure across the UK is 27. So we are well up there. We're not where we need to be, but we're in the right direction. We're definitely in the right right area. So we're going to keep working on that at Dursley, and that survey will also be going out very shortly to our Stroud customers, and then I'll be able to report back to you as to where we are to get a baseline as to how we're performing in Stroud right now, and that allows me to work on certain areas that we need to improve. In terms of memberships, when we took over the site in Stroud in November, I think we expected a dip in memberships where people would take the anti-council approach, and we did see a very small dip, but I'm really pleased to report that our campaigns in December and January overcame that dip, and actually we've got higher memberships across the district now than we've ever had, and that is available in chart 4. So you'll see we're making really good progress towards our 18-month ambition to be a 6,000 member club, and I think it shows that it's achievable, which is great. And then the last chart that I've shown you is chart 5, which just shows the age profile of the users of the centre. It's skewed slightly by the youth number because of swimming lessons, so we get a high figure in that column. But you'll see the rest of it is quite balanced, and we're getting a good attendance across the demographic. But whilst that has use, just seeing the basic age, what my team are now doing is trying to overlay that with postcode data, with indices of deprivation, with different layers of information to give us a real picture of our district and where our members are from, where our users are from. And that's some information that I'll be able to bring to you in the future to give you a much more balanced picture of the district usage. So in terms of future plans, we've had a meeting with our partners at TH6 to look at how we're going to promote both centres and the service as a whole for the next 12 months. And that was a really productive meeting. We've got a plan now of social media advertising, in-person advertising, posters, leaflets, banners and everything to really promote the service, and lots of different offers that you'll see pop up across the year. So that I'll be able to report a little bit more on that when I report to you in September, with some real figures as to how it's worked and the return on investment that we've made. Then looking at some of the key projects that we're working on, two really of the key projects. One of them is the Lido development piece that I didn't start last year because I was really busy, but we have now built we were I should strip it back just a little bit. We were going to go out to tender a few months ago for the project to do all of the LIDO works. What became clear, I think, is that if I'd done that, it would have left us very, very open contractually to scope creep and to financial creep. So what I've done now is delayed the going out to tender and built a team of experts that are front loading the project. So when we do go to tender, every single question is asked. So we've got structural engineers, we've got LIDO engineers, specialist pool, plant, contractors, project manager, an architect's now involved. So a whole team of professionals. They're surveying the site. We've got ground penetrating surveys happening. Very worried that we don't want the diving board to fall into the pool, so we're checking the foundations are right there. They're 100 years old. And the base of the pool, it turns out, is just red brick underneath, which you wouldn't do now. So we're just making sure if we fill the pool in to make it shallower, is the pool going to go down? So lots of upfront work, which I think is really valuable. So when we do go to tender, we know the package. So the plan is now to go out towards the end of April to competitively tender with a view to the work starting on the 1st of October. And that's deliberately pushed out slightly to protect the swimming season this year. I'm happy to answer any questions later about the LIDO specifically. And the fitness gym refresh we had in the business case for the insourcing, and that is now kicking off. We've started the focus groups that we're having with customers and with staff. We've spoke to Stroud College today, and we're planning to engage with the students and staff there. And I'm also engaged now with the kind of 4 or 5 big players in gym installations in the UK, so they're doing some prelim work for me as well. So the hope is that we'll shape that, get it right, and we're hoping to install pre-Christmas this year into both sites, brand new centres. I think what's really important is that we put in not what I fancy or what Ange fancies. We need to put in what people want and what's going to fit the demographic of what is our ageing population. So I'm really excited by that. But again, like the LIDO project, want to get it right up front rather than be criticised for putting in too many treadmills at the end. So customer engagement, we're just about to employ somebody in the team who's going to be very, very focused on the customer experience and customer engagement, and not just our customers, I mean wider district and outside of district engagement around leisure. So we've already started some good works with the Friends of Stratford Park Lido, the Stratford Park Working Group, where we're really now linked in with SGS College, which are keen to collaborate with us in all sorts of areas. And Gloucestershire Police, I meet with those monthly now on site to look at how we can collaborate going forward. And then I think kind of finally, before I take up too much of your time, it's just to let you know about an upcoming event we have on the 1st of June, which I'd like to invite you all to. Between 10 and 4, we've got all of the emergency services come into Stratford Park to do a day. So we've got all of them, including the lifeboat, police dogs, police horses, everybody coming along. But it also coincides with Stratford Park Leisure Centre, or Active Lifestyle Stroud's 50th birthday party. So we're now building a programme inside the leisure centre. The Lido will have a complete programme of activity throughout the day. I think we're now getting climbing wall in. We've got circus skills going on, birthday cake, all sorts of things dotted around the park, food vans. We've got music on the bandstand, so all sorts of things around the park that people can come in and have a bit of fun with and enjoy. So we will be going out to schools to let people know, but I wanted you to be the first to hear it. I guess that we're planning an event which should be good fun. And that's it from me. Sorry to drone on.
Thank you, Darren. Not at all. Any questions for Darren, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Darren. Would it be possible because I know we've probably seen it, but for our next meeting in June or whenever it is, to actually see roughly what the tender is, just to remind us what you're going out for to be started in October, is it just the plant room? Is it whatever it is? Would it be possible to sort of have a list of, you know, what improvements you're hoping to make in the close season?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So before the June meeting, we will have gone to tender. So I'm happy to share it with you
Yeah.
once the pack's done. But it will be a single tender for the entire piece.
Yeah, I'd just like to know what the entire piece is, you know, so that,
No,
you know,
absolutely.
if people ask me,
Yeah.
I can say, well, you know, it's going to include A, B and C.
Yeah,
sort
no,
of thing.
more than happy to share that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly.
Thank
Perfectly
you.
fine.
And also, could I just ask, when you sort of list the negative things, I mean, I'm particularly, because I'm a bit of a one about when people don't answer me on the telephone and you're stood on the sat on the phone for ages. Is it possible sort of to ask, you know, when you put that down as a negative, what you're planning to do to improve that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's a training issue, and we're just working to overcome that. And I hear quite a lot. It's not my job to answer the phone, and actually it is. So it's really a communication piece. The general manager there, Helen, is working tirelessly to fix that and a number of other issues, and I'm supporting her. So it's one of my bugbears. I know it's one of Angie's bugbears. You know, every phone should be answered within 5 rings, and that's very much the target. So people are there to answer the phone.
Yeah. That's what I was always taught at work.
Yeah.
To answer
5
it in
rings
5
maximum.
rings. I got into trouble if I didn't. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Councillor Dadu.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Darren. That was a really useful report. And, you know, I mean, it was something I was quite excited about once it was coming back into council operations. So it's interesting seeing how it's gone so far. There are a couple of questions, I mean, stemming from other conversations I've had in the sort of interim periods. One on the cafe, which is a conversation I had with some fellow councillors who are interested in whether it would be possible to look at a plastic-free cafe, or if what the possibility is around that. If it's something that you sort of just want to get the basics set up first at a cafe, and then that's something we could look at. And so I've got a couple of questions. I'll leave it on the cafe for now, and it might be something that's better to have a separate conversation outside of this committee with. And whether there was, again, whether we could look at local procurement chains and taking something of a community wealth building approach to the way that cafe runs. So yeah, just I'll leave it at that one for now.
Plastic free, I completely agree, is the ambition. We're doing as much as we can to reduce the amount of plastic that we buy and we use in the centre. It's very hard to do commercially, it really is. But I'd welcome a meeting outside if you've got any more ideas as to how we can do more. You know, even to the point where we're recycling our coffee grains and giving them away to customers for gardens. We're doing a lot, but we're not there. And in terms of local supply chains, we are sourcing local wherever we can. As we move to a better menu and we're looking for seasonal products and we're looking for them locally. As many things as we can, we do now source locally, because we want to reduce those food miles. But again, it's our ambition is to shop in Stroud to serve people at Stroud, but we're not there. But it's the ambition.
It's a new project, so I mean, it's good to see that. I mean, there's an ambition there as well. I mean, yeah, that conversation was very much part of a group of councillors looking towards how we could take something at a smaller scale, like the cafe, and think about how we could start setting up the council as a, you know, how you could start setting up those procurement windows with maybe partners who aren't used to supplying locally or supplying outside of traditional sort of commodity markets. But again, something we should maybe chat about is another point. With the leaving members, is there a compulsory or sort of like a automatic survey that is prompted to members that leave or cancel their direct debits?
There's conversations, but we have just brought in a system that will be implemented in the next 4 or so weeks that does much like the antisocial behaviour system, it case manages anybody that wants to leave, so we can take them through a process. So that is coming, but at the moment it's conversation. But we were hit particularly in Stroud with the legacy memberships that Everyone Active's policy was, if you want to leave, off you go. So that there's no contracts. So we had very few tools to actually keep people. And I said a lot of the leavers back in November, December were, it was a lot of anti-council leavers. The council have taken it over. It's going to be rubbish, so I'm going. Actually, we're seeing a trickle of those come back now, which is great. But yeah, so we are going to case manage leavers very proactively going forward.
That's great to hear. And just in terms of the outdoor pool as well, just in the Lido, the site that will be, is there a sort of any rethinking of the way the site is arranged? There's obviously quite a lot of like green, sort of green margin between where the actual leisure centre structure is. I mean, are there any thoughts about what the site will look like, or is this all still open for discussion until surveying's completed?
There aren't any plans to change the Lido kind of layout inside, I guess. What we have been speaking to is Ubico in terms of some nice planting and make it can feel a bit like a sea of concrete when you're in the Lido. And I don't have the funds to completely change the appearance, but we are trying to do some work to soften that sea of concrete with colour, with benches, with parasols, with all that kind of stuff. So a bit of a yes and a no. We're going to do our best, but it won't fundamentally change the way it is.
Thank you. See Councillor Nathan Jama.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. On page 82, your chart 5, there's a really good trend for the under 16s and between 16 to 24. But as we go through the ages, you can see a downward trend. Is there any plans to improve or encourage or promote other age groups?
Yeah, absolutely. The programme's constantly building. We've improved it by around 10 classes already, and we're going to keep doing that. One of the other things that will affect the right-hand side of that scale is that all of the healthy lifestyles classes that Emma's team manage previously weren't reported to the leisure centre. We're moving those across to report at our reception rather than to the instructors, so that will start to see a natural upward trend. And I think we are thinking quite cleverly about how we put the gym in and what we put in to make sure that it's suitable and not scary for all ages. So yeah, I think there's work to go. There's lots of classes and class ideas and plans we're putting in place. So I think we will start to see that trend.
Can I come back on that, Darren? I thought just
sorry.
one further point. It's amazing for us to have much more sort of agency within the leisure centre in Stroud compared to what we did before, where we were really quite constrained. So it's exciting for all of our workers that are over there doing the healthy lifestyle stuff, because it is predominantly our older clients. Another thing is that our partners in the NHS are really excited by what we're doing, because it's suddenly a place that they want to be. So our partners in GHC, who run a lot of the physical type of things, like, physio, occupational, all that kind of thing, they're running an MSK day, which is basically, they've got such terrible waiting lists for people to have appointments for various musculoskeletal things. So they've been asking around where they could do it in the county, and I think it was a battle between us and somewhere in the Cotswolds, and we got them to do it here at Stratford Park. So that means they'll have like 2 full days of appointments that they'll see all of their specialists. But alongside that, they're going to organise other people to be there, so that while they're there, they could talk to someone about blood pressure or this or that. And so that's going to be a great promotion for us, because those are exactly the clients that we want to refer into our specialist physical activity services. And we couldn't have done that before. It just wasn't possible.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, both. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Jonathan next.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. It's really good great to see what you're doing. I think you've sort of answered a lot of things that I was thinking about. The specialist customer experience contractor, is that to do with the catering, or is that like an overall customer relationship thing that we're looking at? Does that link in with our IT systems? And like you say, for the instructors, so they've got all the information at hand, I don't know if you've got handheld devices or whatever, where they can, obviously it helps, like we were saying, about retention and things like that. So, and just, like you said, it's great that you're doing all the training with the soft skills, because I think that's the most important thing. I've always had a good experience, but generally, there's a couple of times I've been in and it's really hard to speak to people, and a few people have mentioned that to me. So yeah, if we can look at the sort of soft skills training, as well as the sort of technical stuff that they all know, but those soft skills are so important.
Yeah, so the customer experience specialist company we've signed in with is called Active Insights. They're a specialist in leisure, work across the UK. We've signed for 3 years with them. Part of that deal includes a training day every month on site with us around customer experience and how to improve the customer experience and the customer journey through our centre. But it also includes a number of computer systems that we'll link to our website and to our app. So MPS is one of them that will be sent out. And we've also bought a feedback tool, which again case manages feedback, so we can respond and ensure we respond in a timely manner. We've bought a sales tool to manage all those leads of people that want to get in touch with us, and also the retentions tool, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So yeah, it's kind of a broad package of support, and we have them on the end of a telephone at any given point. They're organising some mystery visitors for us, so we can learn from that as well. So yeah, I'm really excited actually. We've worked with them for the last year in various ways, but I'm quite excited now that we've really signed a partnership and we're going to commit to the next 3 years of improvements. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, Councillor Turner, Paul.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to hear your reports, Darren. The amount of work and enthusiasm you put into it is tremendous. I got 2 questions. First of all, you mentioned the fact that we're getting disappointments with regards to people not turning up to classes. And rather like our friend Steve has mentioned, he's got pet hates. That's one of my pet hates. What are we doing in terms of trying to manage this then?
We've just put in place a dishonour charge. So it's a charge for not showing up or cancelling within 2 hours before the class. And actually, it's generally been received really, really positively. It's not a money maker for us. That's not what it's designed. It's designed as a deterrent, and it's working. We're getting feedback, active feedback from customers that they're liking the fact that we've put an additional charge in. Which is unusual, but it is working. So it's a dishonour charge that if people don't tap in at reception or don't bother coming at all, then it does add a charge overnight to their account, and they have to clear that before they can make any future bookings. So it's really just designed as a deterrent and an inconvenience. But obviously, if you cancel in a timely manner, you don't get a charge, and it allows the waiting list to be managed a little better, and it's working.
Thank you. That's fascinating, actually, and obviously is a deterrent, isn't it? The other thing that came to mind was the fact that you mentioned the 1st of June. Sounds an amazing event. You're going out to schools to advertise it, and it brings back memories of pre-Christmas when we had an event booked and it was cancelled at the last minute because we were afraid of bringing the area to a standstill. What's the situation with regard to managing this time?
Yeah, I take your point. It was disappointing, but I think it was necessary cancellation before Christmas. So we've taken on board all of those points. So one of the points was that caused the cancellation was the snowball of social media. So I'm not going to be advertising this on social media. I'm going to go directly out to the schools. Another one is in terms of control of people, control of everything on site. I've got the entire Gloucestershire Constabulary joining us to help support with that, and they're keen. All of the special constabulary are going to be walking the park and making sure everything is good. We've taken on board a lot of lessons learned. We've talked about parking. We're looking at how we park in our car parks. Well, we've spoken to Stroud College, and they're opening their car park to us. We've also spoken to Tesco's. So I think that was a real worry that we were going to end up with, Stratford Road completely blocked with cars and traffic. So we're trying to direct people. We're looking at a ticketing system, albeit free, but you can book your activities and get a ticket for it, and that can include car parking, certainly within our car park. It's more about giving ourselves some time to consider our failings from pre-Christmas and then put in place measures to support that. So that's the honest answer. Is it would be very, very easy for me and us to never organise an event in Stratford Park again, but I think we have to be bold and try and go forward and try and control it and put the team in place to manage it.
Thanks very much. Yeah, the last thing we want to do is not create events there. That's the last thing. But I know from last year the amount of disappointment involved, and we need to alleviate that. Thank you. Excellent answers. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Emma, I'm really pleased that since we've taken Stratford Park in-house that we've got more agency in the leisure centre, and particularly in relation to the NHS. But I didn't quite hear, I missed something, so a bit more about this 2-day event. If you could just say that again, I'd be very, very pleased. I didn't know who it was that was coming.
I did say it very fast and very Scottish, didn't I? I will say it slowly. So MSK, as in musculoskeletal. So the services around that, in terms of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and there's a whole load of other specialisms that I don't know about. They have a waiting list. So as part of their drive to get down their waiting list, they're organising appointment days where all the specialists will be in one place and they'll get through people as quickly as possible. They've been doing it in other places and they were looking for a venue for this bit of the county. So their specialists will be there. They'll take up, like, I think it'll be the main halls, won't it? The sports halls. So alongside them seeing their booked appointments, which will all be booked through their services, there will be a number of stands in the hall of other services provided, other specialists that could be of use, including our services, so that we'll be able to advertise lots of the other types of support that might be appropriate. It won't just be older people, but we know that a lot of those appointments will be older people, so we want to really take advantage of that. I can get the dates for you. I can't remember.
No, that's fine. I didn't. Did muscular, skeletal, MSK, what's the last
I don't know
letter?
why it's MSK, because, that's not what that stands for. But I don't work in the NHS, and I don't know why they call it that.
No, there you go.
Oh, is it? It is musculoskeletal, but I know, but why is it a K? That baffles me. I know, but SK.
Because MS is multiple.
I think Fraser Dadu, Councillor Dadu.
Thank you, Chair. Darren, just another quick one relating to the event at Stratford Park Leisure Centre on June 1st. Is it just June 1st? Sorry. What's this? Does this work through the normal sort of licensing process, or what's the capacity of this event? And what's the sort of approach to logistics that you've been taking with it? And does the site include the adjacent fields to Stratford Park Leisure Centre? And could that be considered as a sort of overspill in case of sort of too much attention is reached?
Yeah, I mean, the capacity, I mean, it's a 56-acre park, so the capacity is technically huge, isn't it? What we're trying to do is dot things around the park, so we're not pushing everybody to a single location. The Lido could probably take 1,000 people in there if we need to overspill in there. So so we are trying to dot things around and think cleverly about where we're directing people, where they can go to eat and where they can do different things. So what was the other question?
So I was asking about the extent of the site that was taken, and what was the expected attendance of that Christmas event that wound up being cancelled?
From my memory, we were thinking about 1,000 or so people pre-Christmas, and it got shared on Facebook 80,000 times or something crazy, which is why I'm not putting anything on Facebook. But we've got toilets to support, I think, a couple of thousand people, but I don't see it necessarily as you come for the whole day. It might be you come for a little time in the morning and you do a few things and then you go. So, yeah, bit of a woolly answer, really, but I mean, it's a huge park and we're just trying to, still working out some of the logistics, I guess, working with the SAG group as well.
I was just asking because there was a sort of ongoing conversation that I mean I personally had with Keith Gerrard about. I mean, you know, there's been an ongoing series of conversations around the culture strategy and with some of the former directors of the Fringe Festival, and just considering maybe the relationship the Stratford Park Leisure Centre as a site has with, you know, maybe if there were to be, you know, a legacy festival emerge from the cultural strategy by the time it reaches its sort of end, what the potential sites would look like there. And I guess the interest I had in this was, you know, if an event like this, we could have a sort of process to look at what logistics are used, how people are handled, how people flow on and off of the site. And if, you know, I mean, a lot of other local authorities around the country have begun to package parcels like this so that, you know, if there was a festival to come in there or something like that, there would be a sort of pre-made logistics plan, you know, site flows, egress, all of these sorts of things would be considered, and it's a sort of, you know, full suite package. And I just wondered, I'm not asking you to produce all of that, it's a lot of extra work, but you know, just if some of those things could be maybe kept on record, or a small report could maybe be produced after the June 1st, just something very brief, just so we have a good idea of attendance.
Yeah.
And you know, sort of how people flow through the site, and maybe how that could scale maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of my event that I'm organising, we've completed pretty much a risk assessment that is all encompassing for an event in the park. I'm creating an event management plan, which I guess we would be pick up and drop to a similar sized event, but I can't really speak to in terms of Fringe Festival, music festivals. That's more of a public spaces kind of discussion as opposed to leisure. But we're certainly creating some documents that could be public space for people to use for similar sized events.
Councillor Boyle, James, and then Steve.
Thank you, Darren. I realise you're getting a lot of questions on this, so I'll be really, really quick. I think your idea for the Lido project team is brilliant, and it just highlights your professional attitude to this. It's excellent. I think, was it 2 committees ago, we signed off on the Lido refurb budget. It was about 2.1 million. Is that right? $1 million. Okay, sorry. I literally had to plug that out of my head. I couldn't quite remember. Yeah. So is that team part of that? Or is that still there sort of packaged, and the team will provide a report and then that's there for whoever takes it on?
Yeah, at the moment it's the professional services are going to be funded from within the Lido project, but the hope is that we can do that work and spend the money up front, and then we won't see the financial slip at the back end. So excellent. At the moment we're factoring it all into the budget.
Excellent. And then with that as well, before you go out to tender, maybe this is for next meeting, is there the idea of that sort of community wealth building agenda, where we hope that somebody local might be able to take on that contract, and that would be part of the tendering process?
I'm certainly more than open to a local contractor completing the work. I don't know of any that potentially would do it, but whoever we appoint as the lead contractor is likely to look for subcontractors, and we could put within the tender that where possible, those to be local subcontractors. But I might be wrong, but I don't know of anybody that locally that would potentially take on a £1 million Lido project as the headline act, I guess.
Great. And then just the last two, Friends of Stratford Park and the working group, what kind of input do they have on the development of Stratford Park, and sort of who's on it as well? Who's on the working group? I was just wondering.
So the Friends of the Lido are quite a big group now. I work on a monthly basis or 6 weekly basis with the key trustees, led by Jess McQuail. And so we're working with them on, with Emma in fact as well, looking at any funding streams that they can tap into. They asked us for a shopping list of things that they could work on, and my team have provided that shopping list. So we're hoping that they're going to now be able to go out and look for small grants, little pots of money, to help support maybe some of the aesthetics within the Lido. But in terms of the project and the scope of the project, I've met with them. I've also presented at the Lido to the wider Friends of the Lido in terms of the ideas, got some of their feedback, and for the almost entirely they're supportive of the work that we're going to do. In terms of the Stratford Park working group, I've only been to one meeting, so I don't know everybody's name, but we're represented, Stroud Town Council are represented, SGS College are, Gloucestershire Police, and the Stroud Valley Project. And it seems to be quite a sort of a building group, looking at how we can join up all the dots within the park as residents and move forward. So,
I just wondered if there's space for potential community groups or other user groups to be part of maybe the working group or have some sort of input in the development of the
it's
project.
not my group. I sit on it. That's all.
Hey, is it okay? So part of the development of Stratford Park is what you're talking about. There's loads of community groups that use different spaces already. There's loads of volunteering opportunities within the park. So as part of the ongoing plan for Stratford Park, like we are looking at what's from our team point of view, community wellbeing, where can we add more value to what happens in the park and make sure that partnerships are happening and make sure that it's promoted. Because it's a real rarity. Like what we've got in the Stratford Park is really incredible. And the fact that we now have the leisure centre, we've just got, like I said before, so much more agency about how it gets used. So yeah, there will be a plan being developed, and it's great that we're all within the same team because we're kind of like-minded about the way we want it to see it happening. Yeah, so that there'll be a lot more development of that, but it is already incredibly, like the diversity of what goes on. You know, we don't know half of it. Most people that go in and out the park don't know the half, but all the little groups that are in there looking after bits about, you know, doing projects in it. It's great, but we want to see more.
Thank you. Steve, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me come back a second time. Just on the 1st of June, are you involved in the bowling club, the outside bowling club for that? Because I know that I understand they're finding membership quite difficult, and it's such a great asset in the whole of the park. It's been there since 1900 or wherever. So are they sort of doing a taster day on that day?
I can't answer to them, but what I will promise is to engage with them and
I think if they were aware, it would be sensible for them to do something like that.
I'm saying they'd be more than welcome to do so. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Any more questions? If not, I'll read the decision, which is that the committee resolves to note the contents of this report. I think we've noted them pretty well, actually. Do we have a proposer, please? Becky, Councillor Eldon, and a seconder. Councillor Fraser, thank you. Fraser, you want to speak now? Okay. Anyone for debate, if there's anything that hasn't yet been said in the question section? No, in which case, Councillor Eldon.
Darren, you're a marvel.
On that, can we vote on the motion that Darren is, on the motion that we note Darren's marvellous report? Please raise your hand Yep, and that looks to be unanimous. Excellent. Thank you very much, Darren, for an excellent report and a lot of excellent work. Thank you. Okay, that brings us, the next item is appointment to the Stroud and Rodborough Educational Charity. And although it says there are 2 nominations, one of them has been withdrawn. So ahead of the meeting, there is just 1 nomination, which was Councillor Jill Thomas. Are there any more nominations for that position? If not, then...
You're interested.
Do you want to put yourself forward? Oh, you are? Oh, all right, that changed. It's not on my script. Okay, in which case, sorry. Sorry, Fraser. Yeah. In which case, we will take a vote by show of hand to choose between the 2 good candidates. So those, please. So those who, for Councillor Jill Thomas, please raise your hand. Those for Councillor Fraser Dadu, please raise your hand. So Councillor Dadu Fraser takes the nomination. Was that clear? Shall I do that again?
No, it's fine.
No?
No, I think
Yeah.
quick.
No, well, yeah.
But actually, Jonathan makes a very point. That's, voted on committee. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Fraser. You're appointed to the Rodborough, Stroud and Rodborough Educational Charity as representative of the council on this committee. All right, thank you. Then we have the member officer reports to note, and we have had reports from the Museum in the Park, Cal Trust, Gloucestershire Police and Crime Panel, Citizens Advice, Kings Hill House, which came in as a late paper you should have seen, the Salix project update, community officer update, and the cultural strategy update. So just ask if there are any questions on any of those, which there may or may not be anyone who can answer. Sharma, Councillor Nansen.
On the Citizens Advice report, page 88, there is clients by ward. If I read that correct, tell me if I'm reading that correct. There are like numbers against each of the ward, for example, 66 for a ward, and then there are percentages on the right side. Does that mean 5% of the 66 clients who have had raised one of the top 5 issues? Is that how we should read it?
Yeah, it's Gary Luff, Councillor Luff, who's not here.
That's fine.
So you're looking at the numbers by ward and then the percentages on the right? It looks to me as though the percentages are just a breakdown of what percentage of the total in each ward. That's how I see it, but I'm looking at it as you are.
Okay.
Thank you. Maybe we can ask Emma or Gary.
Thank you.
Any other questions about any of the reports? No? Fraser, Dadu?
Am I allowed to make a note rather than a question, or does it have to be a question?
Go ahead,
So just, I think, from my understanding, I think the cultural committee, cultural strategy panel are meeting tomorrow morning, and there's a launch event which will be sort of a more general public event. We're just discussing it by email, and I will find it within the next 2 or 3 seconds. There we go. And that is on the 11th of April. So, it would be interesting maybe to see other councillors or members of the committee along, just to see where the culmination of that work. Obviously it came before I was on this committee, probably will be, and it seems like there should be, again, part of that civil society engagement and that side of it as well. So it should be quite an interesting event with a lot of perspective shared and maybe some exciting ideas.
Yeah, and I think that Simpa culture shock, I think it's been called, is open to everyone, and I'm sure it will get publicised between now and then. Yeah, thanks, Rosie. Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I see that under the citizens' advice, that my own ward in Ellsworth is very high on the amount of users of citizens' advice. And prior to COVID, and I think as well at that point, they were very short of advisors. They had to pull the satellite one that they ran at the Arkle Centre in Forest Green, a satellite once a week, an afternoon. I just wondered, as we are we give them a very good grant, whether we could ask them if they're a place where they could consider because I understand they still do, they're back doing one in Dursley, Wootton and Stonehouse, and I wonder whether they could possibly come back to Nailsworth with a satellite one at the Arkle Centre. Are we in that place that we could mention to them?
I think we'd have to talk to Elizabeth on that one, because I think it'll be down to resource and in terms of volunteers, and also then resource in terms of being able to hire a venue to do it. So we can take that back to Elizabeth and ask the question.
And I'll just come back. I know that as a town council, when they used it previously, we paid for the hire of the Arkle Centre, and we actually supplied volunteer receptionists, and then they actually brought in an advisor. So I'm just only asking, whether there was a chance.
I can ask the question and say, are you saying that Nailsworth Town Council would be prepared to pay for that?
They have done in the past. That would have to go. I can't speak for the
Okay,
council.
so that would probably,
Yeah.
we'd have to check that. But I'll speak to Elizabeth in terms
Whether
of
they've got the
resource for advisors. I think that's probably sort of one of the key issues, is having enough advisors.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any other comment or question on the reports? No? Okay, thank you. Do we have I don't think we have to. Just noted that no decision to make on that. And that leaves only the work programme. And the question is, does anyone have anything they wish to add to the work programme? Do you want more for this committee to do? No? Steve?
Only just noting that Darren did offer to come back in June with whether I can't see whether there's a report back regarding Stratford Park, but
Leisure performance update.
yeah, the active lifestyles.
Yeah, I think that is on the
Is there?
programme for the June
there's a
meeting.
leisure
Leisure
performance
performance.
Okay, that's already on there.
Yeah. Leisure
Okay.
Services Manager, that'll be Darren.
No, sorry.
No?
Sorry, Chair. That's on the September ones, but for the June one, what we could do is a briefing paper, just to show the works that I do.
It's on.
Yeah, and I will have
It's on
appreciated
June.
that prior as well.
It
so
is, yeah, sorry.
It's on.
Sorry, Chair.
Is that news to you, Darren? Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Darren. Anything else? No? In which case, I'm